What do we have here besides a sinking chair? Hello. I have my arm in a sling. When snow falls and icy rain falls and piles up and it stays below freezing, none of it melts and it solidifies and it turns everything into solid ice. And so little old me, trying to be a good pet owner and go get cat food and cat litter for my cats, went to PetSmart and in the freaking parking lot took a tumble. I fell.
Seen a lot of people out here, like you said, running, sledding, just enjoying it. One thing, oops.
What pissed me off the most is that I tested the ice where I was stepping. It was like a low little wave where it was like snow piled up on both sides, and then this area was like melted down. I took one step, the ice cracked, and I was like, okay, this is just kind of some frozen up water. I took another step, and then whatever happened, I slipped. I tried to recover my balance. I slipped. I fell right on my shoulder. Right on my shoulder. I heard a pop when I fell. And I was like, ooh, that's not good. That is not good. There were a couple people around, one driving by that was like, are you okay? And I was like, oh yeah, fine. I was like sitting on the ground. And I think someone else came out of a store or was walking out of a store and asked if I was okay. And I was like, yeah. But after I took my little tumble, I got up. It was like the initial shock. I went and sat on a bench outside the PetSmart. It's, again, freezing outside. It was getting later in the day. I just sat there for like 15 minutes, just kind of out of it and feeling like I was going to throw up. I knew my arm was already sore, and I was like, hopefully maybe I just dislocated my shoulder and it can get popped right back into place. Eventually went to go sit in my car and I could not move my arm. And I was like, there's not really a chance I'm going to be able to drive anywhere right now. Thankfully, I have some roommates that were very gracious and able to help drive me where I needed to go and also get my car back to our house. I went to the doctors, they took an x-ray, and yep, have a nice little fracture on the lateral edge of my clavicle, which is also funny because the only other time I've broken a bone in my life was when I was a toddler, and it was my collarbone. I texted my dad just asking if he knew which one I had broken, and he said he thinks I broke my left when I was younger. So, fast forward almost 30 years, and now I've broken the right. All things must be balanced, I guess. It's been a tough week already. Pain, mostly. The first day was abysmal. I couldn't move any which way. Twisting my body was painful. Moving my arm was painful. Flexing my hand was painful. I could flex my hand, but trying to put any weight on it is painful. This is also my writing arm. This is my dominant arm. It also sucks because I'm a chef. That's what I do with my daytime hours to, make an income. And it's kind of hard to do chef things and prep food when you don't have a functioning arm, especially when you're not used to it. And especially when that non-functioning arm is your dominant arm that you're used to doing shit with. All things considered too, one of the most unfortunate things for me is that I was planning to go on a trip this week. I was planning to fly out to Chicago and spend some time there for the first time, check out the city, kind of get the feel for it. But no, I have had to cancel that trip. So I'm very disappointed about that. There's silver linings though. I've been in contact with my managers and everything, which we're good friends. So we have a game plan to be able to work through, but it's a very slow healing process for collarbones. And I'm a little worried because obviously I've never broken a bone in my cognizant life, and this is not really something you can just put in a cast and kind of forget about. So I'm gonna have to work on the healing journey. I'm gonna have to deal with physical therapy, and especially because I eventually want to get back to the point where I'm lifting weights, because I go to the gym, I lift weights. I just had decided that I wanted to focus more on building and rounding out my shoulders just for this to happen. Lucky me. Lucky me. Anyway, I was already taking off this week because of my Chicago trip. So my PTO is already in there. I'm already expected to be off. The silver lining is I can take this initial week to recover and rest and kind of let the initial pain subside, which a few days later, pain is mostly gone in rest mode. Sometimes it gets a little stiff and I try to like stretch it out and just move a little bit. So there's so many things I have to think of and plan for and kind of work out now with this. It's kind of scary because, again, it is very impactful in my daily life, obviously. I guess I can also focus more this week on writing and reading. I've been reading my book. I've been reading Queen Demon by Martha Wells, even though I feel like I fall asleep a lot. I will say so far, I think Queen Demon is a sequel to Witch King, which I just finished a couple weeks ago. Loved. I will say this second book is off to a slower start. I'm, not really engaged. It's definitely made me doze off while I'm kind of just sitting and not able to move, which is slightly disappointing because I really want to be able to focus. And again, I think that's more a me problem than the book problem. The book is definitely like slower getting into, I will say, but I think the falling asleep part is definitely me. Between the pain, the meds, being tired, we'll have to see. But, I have this time to write, and unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to write normally. It's going to be a slower process because I don't really have use of this arm. I tried to be able to use my mouse with this hand last night, and it just did not work. I tried like propping up the mouse pad on my thigh on a book just to have that leeway, and it was just the angle I would have to sit wasn't working. I think I'm gonna just have to find out some other way. I have my laptop as well, so when I'm sitting on my little couch, my mind's been foggy since this happened, and now I'm just kind of getting this is a few days after the event. I'm trying to figure out what I can do. Obviously I cannot handwrite, which has become like a big part of my process recently, so that's disappointing. Can't handwrite right now, but I can type. If I'm here at my main desk, I'll probably have to do it with one hand. I might be able to finagle it on my laptop with two hands. It really just depends. But when else am I gonna have the opportunity to complain about writing with a broken collarbone? Hopefully never again. This is already freaking miserable. So I have nothing else to do. I'm not going on a trip to a fun city. I'm not going to work because I'm resting. I'm trying not to doom scroll, even though there's abysmal shit in the news right now. So I gotta focus on something that brings me joy and pray that gets me through these depressing times. Anyway, follow along on my broken collarbone journey.
What a view. I'm a trending topic when I walk into the room. Sitting on a beach somewhere in the Malibu. When I'm pressuring my girls, they don't want them to you, not you.
Okay, I am like attempting to do my writing on this couch using my laptop. I am sitting pretty here in my sling with this little cutie patootie next to me. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, I can use my trackpad, and if I like push my arm forward a little bit, I can get it onto the keyboard. But it's not like a sustainable position, unfortunately. So, I'll make do. Will you love me more? All right, so we are pretty much officially at the week mark post slip and tumble fall break of the collarbone. It's not been the most fun week. It's not been the most productive week. I have slept a lot. I feel like every few hours I have to take a nap, which, looked it up, it's normal. Basically taking naps every day, multiple times. Also, fun alert, I have a fun new pair of glasses. I think these are pretty fun. They're a nice, like, kind of tortoise shell, but in a blue way. I got these last week, the morning before I broke my collarbone, and just really haven't been wearing them because I've just been in my little studio this entire week. I like them. I think they look kind of cute. I'm adding them to my collection. I unfortunately forgot to take my last pair of glasses to my eye appointment earlier this year, so I don't know how different this prescription is from my last one, but I tested it out last night and I think they're pretty similar. So basically I have two pairs of glasses right now, which is nice. I have these, which are new, and I like, a little stylish. And then these fancy ones that I got like 5 years ago. I really like how these sit on my face because I feel like they really blend in with like the color scheme of my face, my blonde hair, my darker beard. So I think these are more like neutral glasses, like still refined to an extent. I think I like them. They're Jaguar, which I think is really cool. Yeah, just comparing, I think my prescription is pretty similar, if not changed just a tiny bit, because it has been 5 years. It's good, right? When your prescription doesn't change that much over time, it means like your eyes aren't getting necessarily worse. I have some family coming up later today, and I'm gonna be able to spend some time with them and talk with them. They're all aware now that I have broken my collarbone. I will be getting picked up. I am not driving long distances right now. I drove a couple times this week for a maximum, I think, of like 15 minutes total. And it definitely was not the most comfortable, but progressively my arm has been getting better. My shoulder, collarbone area has been progressively hurting less. It's still a bit sore. I still can barely use it. You know, I'm taking time, I'm letting it out of the sling, stretching it out, trying to like move it around, increase my range of motion. The tough part is that I still can't use a lot of weight with it, and I still can't move it on my own to a significant degree. Anyway, I can lift it about like 3 inches, right? Without the use of like my other arm assisting. And at this point, I can lift it up pretty decently. I just have to be careful setting it back down because I don't want to just like let it freaking hit. That's gonna hurt. I've been trying to like type some on my laptop, but I cannot get in a good position where I can use my right hand on the keyboard without it hurting after like a minute, or like a slight movement kind of messing up how this is positioned up here, which is tough. Hold on, I gotta put my glasses back on. They're my new fashion piece right now. I think they go well with the sweater, which I have washed. I think this might appear in an earlier segment of this video, because listen. I have 3 comfy sweaters like this that I can put on and be warm and be comfortable without needing a bunch of layers because they're thin or they're restrictive. 2 of them are Superman sweaters. This Superman logo sweater, and then the Supergirl sweater that I got recently that I wore a couple days ago. And then my nice little maroon sweater featuring the drag queen streamer Evo, if you know her. If you know, you know. She's great. Love her. Anyway, it's tough. I'm trying to like psychologically not beat myself up too much for having issues this week. Even though I have been home a lot, I've been sleeping a lot. I've been in a bit of a fog, and part of it, yes, I have doom scrolled a lot. I have tried to write a bit this week. I've made some progress. You know, I don't want to discount my efforts completely, but I'm trying not to like psychologically be too upset with myself because of my struggles this week. So still typing with one hand anytime I want to write and anytime I'm like scrolling the web. I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos recently, which is nice, I guess. I'm catching up with a lot of the creators I follow, I subscribe to on YouTube. I've been doing some research on different things. I've been having as good a time as I could be, I guess. It's not the most fun thing in the world, you know, to break. Ow! God. See, it's also not intense amounts of pain right now. I do want to specify that. Like, that was not an intense shock of pain. It was just a surprising little flare-up of pain. I will say, on the bright side, the pain I have felt with this issue, I've been taking everything slowly. The most pain I felt during this, obviously, was right after the fact, and then when I was at the doctor's getting in and out of my shirt. Putting back on my shirt after getting my x-ray and things hurt like a bitch, because I had to have like a nurse come in and help put on my shirt, and that was irritating, trying to figure out like the best way to do it without hurting me. But we had to do it my right arm first, and getting it up to the neck area when it was all still stiff and I couldn't move everything, that hurt like a lot. But all the pain that I felt so far with this break has not compared to what I will say is the most pain I've ever been in my life, which is when I had COVID. And when I had COVID, I've only had COVID once. When I had COVID, it felt like I was swallowing glass for 2 days straight, 3 days straight. That is the most pain I have ever felt in my life. And I've gotten beat up. I've fallen, I've gotten cuts, I've like scraped up my thighs falling off a bike, and I'm blessed enough that I haven't really been harmed in my life physically. I will say, like, if I have to have a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being my most painful experience that I've ever had, it's when I had COVID and it felt like I was swallowing glass. The pain I felt like a week ago with all this, last Saturday, Sunday, Monday, probably got up to like a 7. But right now, it's kind of at a dull 2, I will say. I think it's more just uncomfortable. So all in all, I think I've been making good progress this week with healing, I guess. But I really cannot wait for the time when I can just lift my arm onto my desk. That sounds so funny to say, but it's just something I cannot do right now. And it makes writing difficult, and the irritation of it all just makes it hard to like be in that headspace. There is one thing that I'm going to point out that I have been doing a lot this week, and I think is such an integral part of the process of creating anything, but especially writing, is daydreaming. Are you wasting your time if you're lost in thought, developing the worlds that you're interested in creating? I don't think so. I think there is, obviously, caveat there, you are wasting your time if you never get to the point where you're writing. Like, if you want to write a book and you're just always daydreaming about it, you're never going to move forward if you don't actually sit down, pick up a pen or a keyboard and write it out. But I'm going to always believe that you are not wasting your time by daydreaming. If you are not wasting your time by conjuring up images about what a story would look like. throughout this week, even though I haven't been getting the words down on the page, spent some time thinking about what different plot arcs in my stories are going to look like, both in the story I'm writing, the companion novel / sequel that I'm writing, and future series in this fantasy world that I'm creating. And some of the things I've thought about, I have committed to being part of the plot. Hi, Marvin. My cats are being patient enough with me this week. I think they're definitely weirded out that I'm not like holding them and petting them as normally as I would. And I've been sitting on the couch that one of my cats usually sits in and lays in, and she's not been quite happy with me this week. If you spend time daydreaming, you are helping your writing process. I think if you can daydream and make decisions, and this is especially with fantasy, but any genre, because any genre has a world of its own that it lives in, and even if it relates to plot, like, it's important. But especially with fantasy, if you can decide and make decisions on the logic of the world, the physics of the world, the magic system, how certain things relate to other things, I think you're making progress. I think you're using your time well. There are some people that can, pump out a book in a month, whatever. There are so many people that I admire and follow that talk about their process and say, oh, I started writing this book, yada, 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 like 5 years prior to it being published. I can't wait for the day when the book I'm writing is finally able to be published and I'm able to share my story and my full journey about the book specifically, because I'm excited to do that. I really want to showcase to people just how long things can take. That way people don't really feel so stressed out by having to immediately get something going, or if they take 2-3 years to write something, it means they're unproductive or bad, especially when they're working a full-time job or multiple jobs and have other responsibilities and other stressors in their life. If we all had the ability to just sit at home and write freely for 10 hours a day with no other responsibilities other than just existing and writing, it'd be a lot easier for us all. But we are generally not capable of that. I think these are interesting things to think about, though, because we never know when we could be incapacitated in some kind of way. And I think it's important not necessarily to go into these things with a game plan. We can't predict everything that happens, and there are some random moments in our lives that can derail us, whether it's like physical events or like big emotional events. A significant death in the family can cause us to completely be derailed from our regular activities. Anyway, so I think there's unique events in our lives that we are just unprepared to deal with that can derail us from pursuing our creative goals, but they happen. I will say this as a different aside. Health is a very big passion of mine. I believe in universal health care. I have different stories I could tell about family members when it comes to the healthcare system, personal experiences with the healthcare system. I have a lot of deep beliefs about the importance of healthcare. I mean, I believe healthcare is a human right. I believe every person, in order to live with dignity, needs access to healthcare. Not just sickness care, or I think there's a term for it, but I think it is like sickness care, or something. But actual healthcare, the ability to be healthy, the ability to prevent certain things. Especially in the United States of America, getting one disease or one illness or breaking one bone can put you in debt and ruin your life and ruin your finances, and that's incredibly unfair. As an aside, like I don't have health insurance. Health insurance is too expensive right now for me, and It's not something I expected to need. It's something I thought I could go without. So even going to patient first to get an x-ray and be seen, that's several $100s that I have to pay. And I was looking at going to the orthopedic doctor and what physical therapy would cost, and the institution or the provider, whatever the term is, the provider that the doctor I saw at Patient First referred me to, their prices, not something I can do. Let's say that. It would put me out just like potentially thousands of dollars to fully treat this in the way that I'm sure they would probably want it to be, because they want that money. Thankfully, I am lucky enough that this was not a significant break. It didn't puncture skin. It's not completely like delineated or whatever the term is. It's not completely shattered. I don't need surgery. And so this should be able to heal on its own. I'm going to be very careful with it. But at the very end, I'm going to be doing what I can to make sure this heals properly without going to the doctor, because I don't want to go bankrupt. Anyway, it's a whole different topic, and again, there are very strong opinions and beliefs that I have about the tragedy of our healthcare system in America. That might be something more in depth for another time. I don't want to bring down the mood too much. We are back, and it is now a few days later. Some good improvements, I will say. Some good improvements. The last time I was having difficulty just moving my arm to the point where I could utilize it at my desk. And we've made progress there. We've made some progress there. I went to work on Sunday. It was very slow. But thankfully, we closed at 8. And that was right before the halftime performance started. And let me tell you, I am obsessed. I am obsessed with Bad Bunny's halftime performance. I've watched it like 4 or 5 times again since yesterday, especially, and today. I definitely committed to trying to increase my range of motion, get to the point where I can use my computer a lot more. I did it for a few hours yesterday where I was outside of the sling. It started getting a little sore when I wasn't like propping it up on my desk. I started today with it off, trying to like have breakfast and go through the motions and, you know, take a shower as well. But it got to the point where it was hurting a little bit, so I put it back in the sling. It's been in the sling for most of today. I'm back at it to the point where I can use my arm a lot more, which is great. Finally! I've been really worried because I had no idea how long it was going to take for me to heal or move or be able to do stuff outside of the sling. I have a new sling coming in tomorrow because this one, you know, is serving its purpose, but it's getting a little, like, dinged up. I try, like, to not hold the weight of my arm too much without giving it some support. Wow, look at that. It's like I don't even have a broken collarbone. If it wasn't for this huge bruise on my freaking... I don't even know if you can see just that discoloring. But anyway, I'm not taking off my shirt for you right now. This means I can go back to handwriting if I have a notebook on my lap. It's probably the best option. I'm back to being able to prop up this arm on my computer desk. The problem is when I'm propping it up still, at this point, it's hard to go from mouse to keyboard smoothly. I have to, like, you know, lift a little to get it to move. And I feel like there's a mind-body connection there, because I used to be able to, you know, just do it without thinking, but now I have to think about lifting my arm a certain way, which is interesting because I don't think I've ever had to do that. I've been sore before. I've gotten bruised up and everything, and like there are sometimes I've hit the gym really hard and I've been sore and had to be careful about moving, but I having to really think about using my arm is a weird sensation. And part of it I think is because there are limits. I'm not at 100% yet, so I need to be cognizant of what my limit is, but I think it's not going to impact my ability to write anymore, which I'm very happy about, because I was really worried about that. I was worried about if I had my arm trapped in this sling for an entire month, just how difficult it would be to write. Obviously, I would still power through because I find enjoyment in it. I want to finish this next draft of my book so that I can do like a final polishing. I'm at that point, like a polishing rewrite. That's my next step once I finish these last like probably 30 to 40 pages of the story. So I'm getting close, making progress. I'm taking the scraps that I had in my last draft, the little dialogue strings that have no padding around them, the bones, the bare bones of the rest of this story, and kind of filling it in. I do want to say, because it's important to be said, I am no medical professional. My advice is not going to be prescriptive. But I do want to say, if you ever break your bone and you're a writer or whatever, rest up, make sure you drink your fluids, drink your water, get your vitamins and minerals. Drinking those Premier Protein Ensures little protein milkshakes, pretty good, because it not only gives you protein, it gives you a bunch of other vitamins and minerals that your body needs, because to heal bones you need protein, you need calcium, you need potassium to help make sure things get absorbed, K2, everything and all that. Make sure to eat whole foods, because the natural vitamins and minerals are going to help you. Take it slow, get rest, and don't stress out too much if you're not being as productive as you were, especially right off the bat. Dealing with like brain fog, lethargy, sleeping a lot, because it's important for the healing process is that you get sleep. Don't beat yourself up for not being as productive as you might want to be, especially if your priority is resting and healing. Even daydreaming is good. Daydreaming, figuring out plot threads, dreaming up what characters are going to say, how your world works, different dialogue options. Like, daydreaming can still be useful, and it can still be a way to move your story forward, make progress without actually having to sit down and type things out. Obviously, I think a broken foot or leg is not going to impact the ability to write as much, but you still want to rest. You still might feel a bit brain foggy or distracted. It's important to focus on healing when you have broken bones. That's what I'll say. Get your vitamins and minerals, drink your water, rest. Well, thank you for following along with this little vlog, this little broken bone vlog. I'm happy that things seem to be looking up. It doesn't seem as scary anymore, which, good. So I think I'm going to wrap this up. Maybe I'll do a follow-up in, a month or two and see where everything's gotten to, but I'm gonna go do some reading before I do more writing. I'm about to start Piranesi, which I've had for a while, but I'm really excited to actually read it. I finished Queen Demon by Martha Wells. I don't know if I mentioned that already earlier, but it's okay. It's not as good as Witch King. I think it suffers from sequel's curse. And then I'm also reading Cafe con Laishi, a little romance, which is nice. I'm making progress on that. I'm about halfway done with that, but I really want to knock out Piranesi while I have the chance. So take care of yourselves, stay healthy, get your vitamins, and if you haven't yet, go watch Bad Bunny's halftime performance from the Super Bowl. It's awesome. It's great. It's a vibe. And you don't need to know what he's singing. You don't need to understand what he's saying. You just need to nod your head, stomp your feet, groove, and twerk that ass. And you'll have a good time. That being said, I'm a peace out. So, goodbye. And until next time.